Hello, welcome to the Breadwinners. I'm Jennifer Owens.
I'm Rachael Ellison.
This is the show where we talk about everything work and family and, I don't know, trees and dogs and cats and I don't know. We're talking about everything. And, you know, we're also talking about rating and reviewing. Please rate and review our show. It really helps.
Please do.
And follow us on the socials. Send us questions and comments. We'd love to get them.
And pick up some of our merch. Our Breadwinners merch. We've got some fantastic. I am wearing right now my Breadwinners sweatshirt. We've got mugs. We got stickers. We got we got t-shirts. You got to check it out. Go to our socials and check out.
Oh, I hope we have mouse
merch.
pads. Remember everything was on a mouse pad?
I do remember that. Oh, we date ourselves.
We really do. But that, hey, that's what we do. So, well, it's about the never-ending hustle. Are you ready to hustle?
I'm ready. Let's hustle it.
Okay, we're going to hustle. So today our topic is a phrase, 2 words. Actually 3 words. It sounds like something that I heard when I got pregnant the first time and then began to see on posters and pamphlets everywhere when I was a pregnant lady. And the phrase is breast is best. It was short, it's snappy,
yes.
alliterative. What is not to love? And so we are going to talk about where that phrase breast is best comes from.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about, is that phrase actually even true? So,
sure.
Yeah. Sure. Because, it wouldn't be fun if it wasn't got a twist ending. So let's, did I already give away the twist ending? So, okay. So first, when you were pregnant, as a fellow former pregnant lady, what was your take on breastfeeding? Were you going to, dedicated to do it and, you were on board?
I was on board.
Too.
I have kind of a long sordid story, but we'll get into it. And the intention was breast is best. That was the intention. Oh,
for sure. Right. It was, there's something about the sense of, it's this magical thing our bodies can do. And isn't that amazing? But also that I think there was a sense that it carries through, like the carrying, for those of us who have done it, the carrying of this baby, for me, it was like having a friend. This is so weird. But I would in my head, I would have these mental conversations with the babies, be sitting in the meetings going, so how's it going in there? What's going on? And breastfeeding was kind of you spent all that time when you were pregnant thinking, well, I can't have soft cheeses. The entire world will crumble if I would have an unpasteurized soft cheese or is it strawberry? It's been so long, but weren't you couldn't have strawberries or something? There were all kinds of things you couldn't have.
Strawberries? I don't remember that.
I don't know. Maybe that was actually after the kid is born. I really have put aside all this knowledge. For a while or something. And then you would read all those stories that new moms in France drink wine, and then in some other country, they eat soft cheeses and it's wait, So yes, I was completely on board. And I think part of it was if I do everything right, nothing bad can happen. Right. And this was the right way to do everything. So, well, okay, so here's my lightning round. We're starting off.
There is that logic.
How many babies in the U.S. started out with breastfeeding?
Oh, God. I'm going to just ask for...
Would you like to phone a friend?
Yeah. Or give me the... Yeah.
Okay.
I got nothing.
2015, the CDC reported that 83% of U.S. babies started out being breastfed. 83%.
83. Huh. That was high. No?
Yeah, that seems extremely high to me. I mean, the 83% of anything seems high,
exactly. Exactly.
And the rate of women who said they continued breastfeeding at 6 months rose to 52% from 42% a decade prior.
Okay.
Which is a lot. So
yeah.
So here's the thing, though. If we think about it a moment, we did not always believe that breast was best. And likely your mom didn't. My mom always talks about like when she had me, they put you in twilight. And then remember, like you go in and then they kind of, I don't even know. And then you stayed in the hospital for like 2 weeks and, like they took care of you. And they literally, when I went off, I think it was Gwen, they were like, well, we're going to try to, like the way the insurance covered you, that like if Gwen was born after midnight, it would count, the day would start, like, like all this sort of like
I totally remember that
stuff. Because they want you out. What is it? Like 1 day for a vaginal birth and like 2 nights for a C-section or something. I mean, it's just, well, back in those days when our moms had us, they weren't pushing breastfeeding. They were, formula was the king, that this is science. And
I don't know. I feel like it.
You're younger than me. So
yes. A little bit. No, but I feel like, I don't feel like formula was ever, actually, I'm sure that formula was not a question for my mom. Like she wasn't going to do it. She only wanted to do it. Oh, really? Yeah.
I should ask,
she never
my mom
formula.
Is listening. We'll have to ask my mom what she thought. But I do think that going through the, 50s, coming into the 60s, formula was a big thing. Formula was,
I totally
you were
get
doing
that.
right by your baby. And so in 2003, when Gwen was born, the hospital sent us home with samples of formula. And I had to make a huge squawk when she arrived that I was going to breastfeed. We have a whole long story about the pediatrician and all this sort of stuff, but I basically had to fight for that. And they were like, well, okay, Mrs. Sunshine, then we will wake you up every 2 hours and we will make you. And they were kind of sticking it to me after my C-section.
Oh, interesting.
And I did it. And because, God help us. And then 3 years later with Owen, same hospital, no samples of formulas and no questions about breastfeeding. They brought him to me.
Interesting.
And so that's the question I have, because then, so Owen is 15. Is your oldest 12?
12.
Yeah, see, like we're in like these 3 year, leapfrogging. So
it was interesting for me when my oldest was born, Sonia. She had to go into the critical care unit, and not critical care.
The NICU?
Wasn't the NICU. It wasn't the NICU. I think it was critical care, maybe. But she had a fever, so they not only gave her formula, even though I was like, no, I'll feed her, but they had to give her formula. So they gave her formula and then they sent us home with like a whole thing of formula. And then I essentially breastfed her for the next 3 months. And then I got injured and then I couldn't because I was on too many. I fell and broke my ankle. So long story short, I couldn't breastfeed her for a long time. Fast forward to 3 years later to when I went and got my son, I was so much more comfortable with breastfeeding. With bottle feeding. Like I thought it was fine. And they were like, absolutely not. And I was like, you could just take him and, and like, I'll sleep because I know that I'm, I'm okay with that. And they were like, no, we're not doing that. We're not giving him any formula. You need to breastfeed him every single time. I was like, okay. And it wasn't like it was interesting.
Yeah,
so
it's very interesting.
My experience.
Well, so that it's, so Courtney Jung is a political scientist and a University of Toronto professor. And so she wanted to look at kind of how did we get to 83% of women, of babies breastfeeding, I guess, and 83% of new moms breastfeeding. And so she is going to be the star of this episode because I did an interview with her a couple years ago when her book Lactivism came out. And it just is interesting because it's a cultural shift of that we all agree. We as a culture agree on certain beliefs. And so this is one of them. And so she says in her book that not long ago, the supermodel Gisele Bündchen displayed an unexpected flair for policy reform when she called for a worldwide law requiring women to breastfeed for 6 months. In Saudi Arabia, women are legally obligated to breastfeed for 2 years. Here in the U.S., politicians and policymakers have stopped short of legislating breastfeeding, but they have decided that breastfeeding should be viewed as a matter of public policy rather than personal choice. And so the CEC, I'm sorry that I don't know what the CEC is, the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General have all identified breastfeeding as a public health issue. And this declaration places formula feeding on par with smoking and unsafe sex as a form of risky behavior that threatens not only individual health, but American society at large. So that's pretty bold, man. I'm sending you another quote from the American Academy of Pediatrics.
Okay, so this is Dr. Richard Chandler, who's the chair of the American Academy of Pediatrics section on breastfeeding. He explained in an interview, this is a health issue for the better health of our infants. So why are we just leaving it up to the whim of the family to do whatever they feel like?
Huh. I mean, what?
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So she notes that this is, in fact, so many people agree that political scientists identify breastfeeding as a consensus issue that unites people who would otherwise disagree about everything else. I'm going to give you this quote because this cracks me up. Here we come.
Feminists and fundamentalists, yuppies and hippies, conservatives and liberal, the medical establishment and its alternative medicine critics, for all their differences, they're aligned on this particular issue. Okay.
And she says, the problem is that these unlikely bedfellows not only believe in breastfeeding and practice it themselves, they often believe that anyone else should do it too. Breastfeeding is no longer just a way to feed a baby. It's a moral marker that distinguishes us from them, good parents from bad. And I think that's what makes this so interesting to me, because I totally viscerally felt that, right? That if I was a breastfeeding mom, I was a good mom. You know, like,
yeah.
And everyone would see it that way, I guess. Right. In my head, I don't know if it's true that you see it, if you see it, but in my head, I believe that you will judge me a good parent because I breastfeed.
Yeah. I mean, I think, I had a very unique experience, but the fact that I wasn't able to breastfeed was a huge blow to my sense of my identity as a mom. Yeah. Like I felt it was a really big hit. But obviously, when my son was born, I had a little bit less
issues. Yeah.
But then I did breastfeed him for 2 years. So, but I think that
it's rough, isn't it?
It's rough. And then, I used to run new moms groups for moms who were going back to work and with tiny babies. And I remember, maybe we're going to talk about this, La Leche League.
Yeah.
Are we talking about La Leche League?
Well, explain what La Leche is for those who don't know.
My understanding is that it's kind of an association and a kind of like a resource to support breastfeeding.
And lactation consultants, like they brought in, La Leche showed up in my hospital room with Gwen, like just to check that I had all the whatever I needed, which, by the way, if you're trying the first, you have no idea what you're doing.
No,
you think it's kind of, whatever. And they do the thing where they just like move the baby's head like slightly and you're like, oh, so, thank you for the good tips and the,
exactly.
The cream, cause let's, it's super painful in some ways. And then when the baby gets teeth, awesome.
Right. Yeah. That's when it all comes together.
All those things. They do that, but they're also advocates. They're strong advocates. They see this as, a calling and like the good doctor is saying, let's not leave it up to the whim of the family. Let's, advocate that this is the way it needs to be.
Exactly. No. And I think that, I don't agree.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think
but it's in your head. I think that's the thing, is it's in our head. It's so much so that I once worked with someone who was out of the gate was like, yeah, I'm not breastfeeding. And I felt it, and which is what got me so interested in this issue. I immediately went, oh, you're a terrible, like, I don't know what, it was just this like visceral thing came up of like, I judged her in my head, didn't say anything. But immediately had to think to myself, why do I care? It took me about 5 minutes, like I cycled around that pretty fast. But when that pops up, it's like, wait, why would I judge this woman in any way? Is she feeding her baby? Yes.
Right.
Like, is she caring for this baby? Is she literally supporting this baby? Yeah. Why do I care how she feeds it?
Right. Well, I think what got to me was like some of the stuff that it's the extent that I saw in these mom support groups, right? So I had moms who were going to La Leche meetings, and the rules and rituals around the breast milk were so intense. Ooh. Like this one mom came in and was like, she needed to go back to work. So she had started pumping. And so the La Leche people, we're probably going to get flack for this. So I
apologize now. I do. Thank you so much for all that you did. But
they were sort of trying to mandate, like, okay, if you pump at 4:00, that's the milk that the baby needs to eat the next day at 4:00. And if you all of the times need to match up with the time of day that you
or you're a bad mom.
Or you're a bad mom. And these moms were like absolutely beside themselves. This one particular one I remember was like, I don't understand how I could do that.
Possibly make all this happen. Right.
And, and my policy as a facilitator of those groups was like, I don't prescribe anything. I don't say do it. I don't say don't do it. I don't say, there was no judgment, but at that point I was like, you don't have to do that. I was like, no, I was just like, your sanity is paramount here. And if, and you need to, maybe I didn't do it exactly like that, but yeah.
Well, and here's where it comes. I was preparing for our episode and I found this PBS NewsHour article. Okay, but research has long shown that breastfeeding is the best way to nourish an infant, boost their immune system, prevent them from being sick or becoming overweight or obese, and forge bonding between mother and child. It can also help maternal health. And experts said that after this was something President Trump had said, low-income and impoverished areas where breastfeeding can make the biggest improvements. To which I wrote to myself, breast milk is magic. I mean, and this is PBS NewsHour. It's just accepting that all things, breast milk is this magical elixir. And maybe it is, but now we're going to pivot a little bit because it's important to note, like the women in your group, they're working moms. And so we're not talking about breastfeeding in this country. We're talking about breast pumping, which is a particularly American thing because we don't have paid maternity leave. So so specifically putting all these onuses on these women of like, you got to pump at 4:00. And then if you at 4:05, you got to do this. Yeah. That woman needs to go back to work for any reason why she's going back to work, but likely is going back to work to support her family. Yeah. She's not going to be able to do any of that. And she's certainly not going to do it breastfeeding directly to her infant. She is going to be what they call expressing milk. She's going to be then taking, and I'm speaking from years of experience, taking the pump, finding a place to pump. I'm before the American Care Act that I used to pump in a rotating network of conference rooms when I was at Footwear News. And then you'd put it in the bottle. I had a little cooler that had an ice pack. Then I'd take the milk home. I'd put the milk into little supply bags, and then you'd freeze the milk because you try to get ahead of yourself, because then I would bring the milk and it would go to daycare with baby Gwen or baby Owen, and they would warm up the milk gently and then feed the milk to the baby. And this is called breast pumping. That is not breastfeeding. And all of our public policies are about breast pumping, facilitating pumping, making pumping easier, making pumping cheaper, which is expressly an American response to, and this is, I'm quoting from Professor Jung, the contradiction between what the American Academy of Pediatrics says is, we need 6 months of breastfeeding and the absence of a federally mandated paid maternity leave. So, yes. And that's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So pumping is compatible with U.S. government policies because it's business friendly, she writes. And it's all about maintaining a competitive economy and labor force. It's not primarily a benefit to mothers and children.
Right.
Which I love. Like, let's just call it while we call it. So,
yeah.
Here's the thing, though, that when she starts looking into the research, all that it's going to cure, obesity, and it's going to be for immunity, and it's all this sort of stuff. The research is regarding breastfeeding, not breast pumping. There's absolutely no research into whether or not breast pumping changes the milk in some way. We don't know the impact of freezing and refrigerating it, heating it. Does it reduce the risk of infection or reduce the...
Oh, interesting.
All of that. So she's not saying it will or it won't. She's just saying that the research is not there. And she says that a lot of the research too, because you can't know this, that breastfeeding, the value of the mom holding the baby and communicating. I mean, isn't that one of the joys of breastfeeding? Is that quiet moment of communing with your little one, and you talking to her, and just relaxing. And there is, they know the physical, there is the endorphin or whatever that relaxes you.
Oxytocin or whatever it is.
Yeah, we don't know. We don't know because the research is about like immediate breast milk, and as opposed to frozen and rewarmed breast milk.
Got it.
And so when you say breast is best, totally could be. And I totally bought into it. And I wanted to be the one also. I think there's an ego thing. This is what I've always, I think back of it now, that only I can. I created this baby. I gave birth. And I will continue, and somehow I will create some sort of magical halo that nothing bad can happen to my baby because I am figuring out this breast pumping business. Yeah. Yeah. And so I saw it as something that I could do to protect my babies when I couldn't be with them.
Yeah.
But and I breastfed both of mine for a year. So I'm totally pro breastfeeding. And one of them was supplemented with formula. The other, I was able to make it through. And I held guilt about having to tap into formula. I mean, it's just all in my head. This is all just me just telling my therapy. Yeah.
I get it. No, it's intense. I think that mentality of oh my God, I've brought this person into the world, and how can I do the absolute best to protect them in every way, and what's my responsibility in that? And I don't know. I'm just thinking about, I was just with a new baby and her mom, and the sort of volume of there was breastfeeding, there was formula, there were a lot of different apps kind of helping her track it. And I don't know. It's intense. Motherhood's intense. That's all I have to say.
And the professor says, if you really do believe that breastfeeding is going to protect children from pretty much anything that could ever happen to them, it's almost impossible not to slip from breastfeeding is my choice, it's what I'm going to do, to breastfeeding is an obligation, it's what everyone should do. But if you believe that breastfeeding has a modest impact on the risk of infection, then you can step back and say, hey, it's totally responsible for a family to weigh the modest reduction in the risk of infection against all other things that are going on in their lives and make their own decision. Because that's how we talk to ourselves, isn't it?
Exactly.
So, and that's when she and I spoke, the end of our conversation was, if I had a third baby, I'd be a single mother because someone would have left me.
Right.
But if I did, I would totally try doing all this again. I loved breastfeeding.
Yeah, me too.
It was a super hassle, the whole lugging the milk back and forth and whatever. But I did love getting home at night and being with my baby. Like, I would totally do it again. I just want to be informed and I don't want to be bullied into it. That's all I'm saying,
No, I think that's right. I think that's what we all want. It's just,
right?
It's
just to do it. Do it informed, Yeah.
Do the best that we can. Yeah.
And have the information so that we can actually make truly informed decisions and not just be, because seriously, if you tell me that this stuff is going to, make my baby Superman, then not only am I a good mother, there's no other choice. How can I not do this?
Exactly. Exactly. No, it's true. Oh,
so
I know.
So the thing about this too, though, is beyond the individual mom and dad, and the like. And also, by the way, we're not even talking about families where, like, you had a situation. There are 8 million variations of situations. And so to start out and to feel any guilt in already a difficult time when we can't sleep because baby's up all night and you worry about what you're doing is right. It's like, can we take one weight off the scale and say, you're doing okay. You're making it happen. You are doing the best for your baby without like putting an added thumb of guilt on it. Actually, we can't. Mom guilt is real. And it's, seemingly how our economy works. But this kind of thinking impacts how policies are made. And so the Affordable Care Act that I had referenced before. So the Affordable Care Act does support breast pumping in a sense, because it requires, a certain level, certain size of employers to provide time and space for women to pump. And then later, Senator Mikulski of Maryland pushed through an amendment to provide free breast pumps to women, which, by the way, I can't even imagine, because that comes long after I needed one. Those breast pumps are expensive. So, yay.
Yeah.
But
I'll be honest, I bought a used one.
Did you really? Because the actual machine is just a machine.
All the tubes were new. All the tubes were new. But yeah, I bought a used one.
Do you know my first pump? I had the Medela Pump and Style.
Yeah,
I'm a stylish
of course,
woman.
Pump and Style.
It looked like a little bowling bag. It was black and it had its curved top, and it was very stylish. It was stolen. I used to keep it under my desk in the newsroom that I worked in, and someone took it, and my employer was nice enough to get me a new one, which was lovely of them. They they didn't have to, they did it. It was very lovely. But can you imagine someone thinking that they got, woohoo, and then realizing it's a breast pump?
Oh,
you win, dude.
Oh my God.
So here's the thing with the Affordable Care Act, though, is that while the employers must give you the break, they don't have to pay you for them. And there's very little enforcement available if they even refuse to give you a break. So we want these women, these new moms to breastfeed, but we, in true U.S. fashion, we give them very little support to actually do it. So, and Professor Jung says, if you want me to breastfeed exclusively for 6 months, then you need to give me 6 months of maternity leave, period, the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, period, the end. I agree with that.
Yeah. So it's, let's start you out, new mom, and put this guilt on you to do this thing. Push it with this wonderful marketing message of breast is best. I mean, this is, that's gold. That's like plop, plop, fizz, fizz. Oh, what a relief it is. That is some really great marketing. But we're not going to give you anything. And they'll tie public assistance to whether or not you're breastfeeding. You get more if you're breastfeeding and less if you move to formula. Like this stuff, the ramifications, because we all believe it and we believe it to be an obligation, it ripples out to you, whether you feel it or, whether you realize where the pressure is coming from or not. It just becomes
Right.
rule. It becomes law.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't seem, it's like pump. I guess the first thing, and I find it so fascinating that I had done working mother for a long time and always had referred to it as breastfeeding. And until talking to the good professor, didn't tie in the breast pumping with the breastfeeding. Like that they were together and apart. That why do we all pump? And that pumping was really an American thing. Like the revenue is here in America for breast pumps, which I'm all for breast pumps. I use them and all that sort of jazz. But why do we have breast pumps a lot in this country? Because we send mothers back to work and we don't give them paid maternity leave.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's
and
true.
That women who do then try to pump at work. Oh, have we talked about breast pumping harassment? Giving them a hard time for when they do try to pump and they do try to keep it going. Again, as with having a sick kid or a sick spouse or it just depends on how supportive your employer is. It's once again, the employer lottery.
Exactly.
Well, so with your new mom groups, did they stick with breastfeeding? Because I'm assuming they came in wanting to do it because 83% of them do.
Yeah. I don't think my goal wasn't to ask that question necessarily. Right. So I can't answer that question because I did it. I think a lot of people just tried to continue breastfeeding, but it expressly, for lack of a better word, was not something that I wanted folks to feel like they had to talk about with other people.
Right.
Because I didn't want that judgment in the mix. So I don't know.
One of the things we asked early on, and I think we were still asking because it was an easy question to ask, but where did you give a map when we were assessing companies, best companies for working mothers? Did you give a map to where the pumping rooms are? Did you have pumping rooms? Do you give them a map and do they have locks on the door? Which you think is like, well, duh. But the rooms that I pumped in never had locks. They were conference rooms.
Yeah.
And it was always just a fingers crossed that no one would come in because they hadn't booked the room. I would go around and ask the receptionist on every floor if they had an empty. I would start at the top floor, like floor 6, and work my way down until I got to an empty conference room. And by the way, this is what HR told me to do.
Right.
This was the plan. So that's how it looked. So which is, I don't know, the whole dichotomy, the paradox of putting guilt on parents, it just never surprises me. I mean, or it always surprises me that it just never ends. The like, you should do this. You must do this. Oh, we're not going to help you do it.
Right. Right.
So, yeah. But again, I look back on that period fondly.
Sure. Me too. Yeah.
Except the biting, which will be a whole nother episode. Right. We'll just complain about another. So, yes. Exactly. So, the twist ending is breast could be best. It does, breast milk does some great things. We know some of those studies are really old and on really small cohorts because you'll be surprised to hear it's really tough to, track things that tiny newborns are doing and their moms and all that sort of jazz. But,
bringing us back to maybe apps are going to transform that. Like just there's apps where tracking, I think they've just become a lot more sophisticated tracking the feeding. So that might be able to help that.
And seeing baby weights and baby infection. Like if you could tie medical records to, they'll be able to see things if they can anonymize the data for stuff. Yeah,
exactly. I think there will be a lot of data at some point soon.
And then it's the thing of figuring out the breast pumping business will be more difficult. Like, are you warming the milk in the right way? There's a lot of variables you can't account for. But I do think we need to study the impact of expressed milk that is frozen and warmed up again. Could do nothing. Could be completely fine. It could be whatever. But we need to know these things because, God forbid we're just wasting our time on that part. Yeah. I don't know. but there's still much to know about it. But yes, I would love to. And then let's not guilt people who use formula, please.
No, let's not.
And ourselves, guilt ourselves, because I know I felt it when I used it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I definitely, there's a lot there. It's a very complicated emotional topic for sure.
And on the flip side, though, totally glad I have teens now and I don't have to think about these things.
That is good. That is good.
That's a bonus of teens. So we move on to other things like college applications and tuition, and it's a whole other thing. Should we do that? Should we do a whole episode on the Common App?
Oh my God.
On the FAFSA form, Common App, and CSS profile? Oh, God. No, let's not. That's too depressing. Well, thank you for talking with me about breasts.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been the best.
And as we love to say, keep hustling.
Keep hustling.
This podcast is part of the Sound Advice FM network. Sound Advice FM, women's voices amplified.